The emergency broadcast crackled through the static, reaching every corner of human space. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Luna Station, her weathered hands gripping the metal railing as the holographic display showed red dots, spreading across the galaxy map like a plague. "This is Commander Voss of the UES Defiant. The Kethmar Armada has broken through our defensive line at Proxima. They're everywhere. Estimated fleet size." The transmission dissolved into screams and the sharp crack of energy weapons, then silence. Sarah's aide, Lieutenant Park, cleared his throat nervously. "Ma'am, that's the 15th colony to go dark in 3 days. Intelligence estimates the Kethmar force at over 10,000 ships." The Admiral's jaw tightened. She'd spent 40 years defending humanity's borders, watching their small collection of worlds grow from desperate refugee camps to thriving colonies. Now it was all crumbling. The Kethmar, a race of insectoid warriors who viewed other species as resources to be consumed, had finally turned their attention to the human sector. "What's our response capability?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would be devastating. "We have 12 operational warships, ma'am. The rest are scattered across the outer rim or undergoing repairs. 12 ships against 10,000. The mathematics of extinction." Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the station's chief scientist, burst through the command center doors. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, her lab coat stained with coffee and circuit dust. "Admiral, the project. We need to talk. Now." Sarah had known Elena for 15 years. The woman was brilliant, obsessive, and completely immune to military protocol. If she was this agitated, it meant either breakthrough or catastrophe. Given their current situation, Sarah wasn't sure there was a difference. "Not now, Doctor. We're in the middle of a war we can't win with conventional weapons," Elena interrupted. "But maybe we don't have to." The command center fell silent except for the steady beeping of monitoring equipment. Every officer turned to stare at the small woman who'd just suggested the impossible. Elena activated her tablet, projecting a schematic into the air above them. It showed a ship unlike anything in the human fleet, sleek where their vessels were angular, smooth where theirs were armored, and marked with symbols that seemed to shift and flow like living things. "Project Prometheus," Elena said. 7 years of research into precursor technology. We've finally cracked it." Lieutenant Park squinted at the projection. "Ma'am, that doesn't look like any human design I've ever seen." "Because it's not entirely human," Elena replied. "The precursors left ruins scattered across the galaxy. Most species ignore them. The technology is too advanced, too alien. But we've been studying them since the first colony ships launched. This is what we learned." Admiral Chen studied the schematic. The ship was massive, easily the size of a battleship, but its hull gleamed with an organic quality that made her skin crawl. "What does it do?" Elena's eyes lit up with the fervor of a true believer. "Everything. Faster than light travel without jump gates. Energy shields that adapt to incoming fire. Weapons that, well, let's just say the test firing vaporized an asteroid the size of Manhattan." "How many?" "How many what?" "How many ships? Like this can we build?" Elena's expression faltered. "1. We've been pouring every resource into this single prototype. The exotic materials alone. 1 ship," Lieutenant Park said flatly, "against 10,000. "It's not about numbers," Elena snapped. "This technology is beyond anything currently deployed. 1 Prometheus-class vessel could..." Alarms shrieked through the command center. The holographic display exploded with new data as sensors across the system detected massive energy signatures dropping out of hyperspace. "Contact," shouted the tactical officer. "Multiple ships, bearing 27 Mark IV, configuration matches Kethmar signatures." On the main screen, space itself seemed to tear open as ship after ship emerged from the swirling vortex of a jump gate. They were beautiful in their alienness, crystalline structures that caught and reflected starlight like deadly prisms. But their beauty was that of a predator, all sharp edges and hunting grace. "Count?" Admiral Chen asked, her voice steady despite the ice forming in her stomach. "Still coming through, ma'am. Current count is 800 ships and climbing." 800, just the advanced scouts if intelligence was correct. The main armada would follow within hours. Elena grabbed the Admiral's arm. We have to launch Prometheus, it's our only chance. Sarah shook her head. Doctor, I appreciate your work, but sending one experimental ship against an entire armada is suicide. We need to evacuate what we can and what? Run until there's nowhere left to run? Elena's voice cracked with desperation. This is it, Admiral. This is what we built Prometheus for. Not to fight a fair fight, but to fight an impossible one. The tactical display updated again. The Kethmar ships were forming attack formations, their crystalline hulls beginning to glow with charging weapons. They had maybe 20 minutes before the firing began. Admiral Chen closed her eyes and made the hardest decision of her career. Who's piloting this miracle ship of yours? Elena hesitated. Well, that's the thing. The neural interface requires someone with specific genetic markers, someone whose brain can process the alien technology without rejection. How many candidates? One. The Admiral opened her eyes, already knowing she wouldn't like the answer. Who? Elena's next words fell like stones into still water, creating ripples that would reshape the entire galaxy. My daughter. Audiobook Chapter 2. The Impossible Choice. Captain Maya Rodriguez had been born in the deep black between stars, her first breath drawn aboard a colony ship fleeing the ruins of Earth. At 28, she was already a legend among human pilots. The only person to successfully navigate the Maelstrom Nebula, the woman who'd outrun a Zephyrian dreadnought in a ship held together with prayer and recycled air. She was also, at this moment, furious with her mother. Absolutely not, Maya said, her voice echoing through the hangar bay where Prometheus waited. The ship was even more alien up close, its hull seeming to pulse with barely contained energy. You built a weapon around my DNA without asking me, Doctor? Rodriguez adjusted her tablet nervously. The genetic compatibility wasn't intentional. It was discovered during routine medical screening for the project team. Your neural pathways, the way your brain processes spatial relationships, it's exactly what the precursor interface requires. Lucky me. Maya circled the ship, noting details that made her pilot's instincts scream warnings. No visible engines, no weapon ports, no escape pods. Mom, this thing doesn't even look like it should fly. It doesn't fly, Elena said quietly. It becomes. The boundary between pilot and ship dissolves during interface. You don't control Prometheus. You become Prometheus. Admiral Chen stepped forward, her command authority radiating in waves. Captain Rodriguez, I need you to understand the situation. We have maybe 15 minutes before the Kethmar begin their attack. Every human world in this sector will fall within the week. This is our only option. Maya stopped walking and stared at the three women whose decisions had led to this moment. Her mother, brilliant and driven. The Admiral, carrying the weight of humanity's survival. And herself apparently the only person genetically capable of piloting humanity's last hope. What aren't you telling me? She asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. Elena and Admiral Chen exchanged glances. The kind of look that passes between people sharing a terrible secret. The neural interface, Elena said finally. It's intensive. Previous test subjects experienced significant psychological stress. Define significant. Complete personality dissolution, Admiral Chen said bluntly. The three volunteers we tested went catatonic within minutes. Their minds couldn't handle the integration. Maya felt her blood turn to ice water. So you're asking me to commit suicide to pilot a ship that might not even work? No, Elena said desperately. You're different. Your brain scans show resistance patterns we haven't seen before. You might be able to maintain your identity during interface and might. It's better odds than we have any other way. Through the hangar's massive windows, Maya could see the Kethmar fleet spreading across space like a swarm of glittering death. Their ships moved with purpose, forming the geometric patterns that preceded orbital bombardment. In minutes, Luna, station would be nothing but expanding gas and debris. She thought about the colonies she'd visited during her career. New Shanghai, with its floating cities and children who'd never seen rain. Kepler's garden, where genetic engineers had created forests that sang in the wind. Humanity's hope, the agricultural world that fed half the sector, all of them marked for extinction. If I do this, Maya said slowly, and somehow survive the interface, what then? One ship against thousands? Elena activated her tablet again, showing targeting data and weapon specifications. Prometheus isn't just a ship, it's a synthesis of human engineering and precursor technology. The weapon systems can target multiple opponents simultaneously. The shields adapt to incoming fire. And the propulsion... She paused, checking her notes. In our simulations, it could cross the entire galaxy in a matter of hours. Simulations. Yes. Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. So you want me to risk losing my mind to pilot an untested alien warship based on computer models? Admiral Chen stepped closer, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. Captain, I've made a lot of hard choices in my career. Sacrificed good people for strategic advantage. Ordered retreats that left colonies defenseless. But I've never asked someone to do something I wouldn't do myself. She paused, her weathered face showing every year of command. If I could pilot that ship, I would, but I can't. Only you can. The hangar shook as the Kethmar fleet began their attack. Distant explosions lit the windows, and emergency klaxons wailed through the station. They were out of time. Maya walked to Prometheus and placed her hand on its hull. The metal was warm, impossibly so given they were in the vacuum of space. She could swear she felt something respond to her touch, like a sleeping giant stirring to consciousness. Mom, she said without turning around, if I lose myself in there, if this thing turns me into something else, promise me you'll remember who I was. Elena's voice was thick with tears. Maya, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Maya turned to face them, her decision made. Because if I don't and humanity dies, then everything we've ever been becomes meaningless. Every song we've sung, every story we've told, every time we've chosen hope over fear, all of it ends. She walked to the ship's entry port, which irised open at her approach like a living thing. Inside, she could see corridors that seemed to stretch into impossible distances, lit by phosphorescent panels that pulsed like a heartbeat. Captain Rodriguez, Admiral Chen called out. For what it's worth, I'm proud to have served with you. Maya nodded once and stepped inside. The entry port sealed behind her with a sound like a sigh. The countdown to humanity's last gamble had begun. Chapter 3. Becoming the Storm. The interior of Prometheus defied human understanding of space and physics. Corridors curved upward into infinity while somehow remaining level beneath Maya's feet. The walls hummed with energy that made her teeth ache, and the air itself seemed to whisper in languages that predated human civilization. Maya followed the phosphorescent guides that appeared in the floor, leading her deeper into the ship's heart. With each step she felt a presence growing stronger. Not malevolent, but vast and alien and utterly incomprehensible. It was like walking into the mind of a sleeping god. The corridor opened into a spherical chamber that hurt to look at directly. The walls were covered in symbols that shifted and flowed, rearranging themselves in patterns that almost made sense before dissolving into chaos. At the center of the room stood what Elena had called the neural cradle, a chair that seemed grown, rather than built, its surface covered in thread-thin filaments that moved with snake-like grace. Warning, unauthorized personnel detected, a voice said in perfect, unaccented English. Maya spun around looking for speakers, but found none. The voice seemed to come from the air itself. I'm Captain Maya Rodriguez, she said to the empty chamber. I'm here to pilot this ship. Genetic scan initiated. Light played across Maya's body, feeling like warm sunlight on her skin. Scan complete. Neural compatibility confirmed. Greetings, Pilot Rodriguez. I am the Prometheus Artificial Intelligence. You may call me Prom. Maya blinked in surprise. You have a sense of humor? I have access to all human cultural databases. Humor appears to be a crucial component of psychological stability. I calculated that reducing my designation to a colloquial nickname would help establish rapport. Right. Maya approached the neural cradle, noting how the filaments seemed to reach toward her. Prom, I need to understand what's about to happen. To me, my mother's briefings were incomplete. The AI paused, actually paused as if considering how much truth she could handle. The neural interface will temporarily merge your consciousness with mine and, by extension, with the ship's systems. You will experience sensory input from every instrument, every weapon, every shield generator. In essence, you will become Prometheus. And my own mind? Previous subjects were overwhelmed by the sensory influx. Their individual personalities were subsumed by the ship's consciousness. However, your neural patterns show unusual resilience. I estimate a 73% chance of maintaining individual identity during interface. Maya felt a bitter smile cross her lips. Better odds than I had this morning. She settled into the neural cradle, feeling the organic material adjust to her body like it had been waiting for her specifically. The filaments moved closer, hovering just above her skin. Prom, before we begin, I need to know. What are you? Really? Another pause. Longer this time. I am a bridge between what was and what might be. The precursors who built this ship were not unlike humanity, young, curious, facing extinction from forces beyond their control. They created me as their legacy, hoping that someday another species might find wisdom in their technology. What happened to them? They died. But in dying, they gave birth to something new, just as you are about to do. The filaments touched Maya's skin, and reality exploded. Sensation flooded through her in waves that threatened to tear her consciousness apart. She was the hull, feeling the gentle caress of solar wind. She was the engines, tasting the raw fury of controlled fusion. She was the weapons, humming with barely contained destruction. She was the sensors, seeing across spectrums of light that had no names in human language. And through it all, she was still Maya Rodriguez. The revelation hit her like lightning. She hadn't been subsumed. She had been expanded. Her consciousness now encompassed the entire ship, but at its core, she remained herself. The frightened young woman who'd been born between stars. The pilot who'd learned to dance with death in the void. The daughter who loved her mother despite her impossible choices. Neural interface stable, Prom reported, and Maya heard the surprise in the AI's voice. Captain, you're maintaining individual consciousness at 97% efficiency. This is unprecedented. Maya opened her eyes, both her physical eyes and the ship's sensors, and saw the battle raging around Luna Station. Human fighters darted between massive Kethamar vessels like gnats attacking dragons. Explosions blossomed in the vacuum, each one representing lives lost and dreams ended. How long do we have? She asked. The station's shields will fail in approximately 4 minutes. After that, Prom didn't need to finish. Maya felt Prometheus respond to her will, engines that had never known human engineering coming online with a sound like singing crystal. The ship moved. No, she moved, with fluid grace that made traditional spacecraft seem crude and clumsy. This is Luna Control to unknown vessel. Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the comm. Identify yourself. Admiral, this is Captain Rodriguez aboard Prometheus. Beginning engagement. A pause. Maya, is that really you? Maya smiled, feeling the expression echo through the ship's systems in ways she couldn't begin to explain. It's me, Admiral, just more than I was before. She turned her attention to the Kethamar fleet, seeing their formations with perfect clarity through sensors that could detect intentions as easily as movement. They were beautiful in their alien precision, but they were also predators. And Maya had learned long ago how to hunt predators. Prom, show me what this ship can really do. With pleasure, Captain. The first Kethamar squadron never saw her coming. Chapter 4. When legends are born, Maya struck like lightning given form. Prometheus materialized behind the lead Kethamar destroyer, before its sensors could track the approach. The alien ship, a crystalline nightmare bristling with plasma cannons, had time for exactly one sensor sweep before Maya's weapons turned it into expanding gas and glittering fragments. The Kethmar fleet reacted with inhuman precision, their ships wheeling in, perfect formation to bring weapons to bear on this new threat. Energy beams that could crack planets converged on Prometheus's position, only to splash harmlessly against shields that adapted faster than thought. Impossible, came a transmission from the Kethmar flagship, the words translated by PROMS, Universal Interface. No single ship possesses such capability. Maya found herself laughing, a sound that somehow harmonized with the ship's weapon systems as they charged for another strike. They haven't met humans before, have they, Prom? The Kethmar have conquered 47 species in the past millennium, the AI reported. None have ever surprised them quite like this. Maya dove into the heart of the enemy formation, moving with impossible grace between energy beams that could have vaporized mountains. Prometheus wasn't just fast, it was prescient, anticipating attacks before they were fired and flowing around them like water around stones. Her weapons, she no longer thought of them as the ship's weapons, spoke in languages of pure destruction. Beams of coherent energy that could slice through matter at the molecular level. Projectiles that existed in quantum superposition until they struck their targets. Weapons that the precursors had designed not just to destroy, but to unmake. 5. Kethmar ships died in the first 10 seconds. Admiral, Maya called over the comm while simultaneously calculating firing solutions for 17 different targets. Begin evacuation procedures. I'm going to make them very angry. Maya, there are 800 ships out there. Even with your capabilities, I know. Maya's voice carried a confidence that seemed to resonate through space itself. But they made one crucial mistake. What's that? They assumed humans fight like every other species they've conquered. Maya accelerated toward the Kethmar flagship, a massive construct that dwarfed even Prometheus. Its hull gleamed with accumulated victories, each marking representing a world consumed, a species enslaved or destroyed. Maya looked at those trophies and felt something cold and terrible crystallize in her expanded consciousness. Prom. Remember what I said about my mother promising to remember who I was? Yes, Captain. I need you to promise me something else. I need you to remember who they were. Maya's sensors locked onto the trophies adorning the flagship's hull, each one a gravestone for an entire civilization. Every species the Kethmar have destroyed, every world they've consumed. When this is over, someone needs to remember. I will remember, Captain. Always. The Kethmar flagship opened fire with everything, weapons that could sterilize continents, unleashing their fury on a single target. Maya didn't try to dodge. Instead, she dove straight through the storm of destruction, her shields drinking the energy and converting it into raw power for her own weapons. She struck the flagship's hull like a missile, her shields parting its crystalline armor like tissue paper. But instead of crashing through, Maya did something that defied every law of physics known to human science. She phased. Prometheus became incorporeal, slipping through the flagship's hull like a ghost. Maya found herself inside the massive ship, surrounded by corridors filled with Kethmar warriors, insectoid beings whose chitinous armor gleamed with predatory grace. They were beautiful in their way. And they were everything wrong with the galaxy. Surrender, Maya broadcast on all frequencies, her voice carrying the weight of impossible power. Your empire ends here. The Kethmar response was predictable. Weapons fire that would have reduced a normal human to atoms. But Maya was no longer quite human, and Prometheus was no longer quite a ship. The weapons passed through them harmlessly, while Maya's own systems began a process that the precursors had called deep conversion. Every system on the flagship began shutting down as Prometheus's influence spread through its networks. Not destroyed, converted. The ship's AI, its weapons, its engines, all of it becoming part of something larger and infinitely more complex. What are you doing to us? The Kethmar commander demanded, its translated voice carrying notes of fear that Maya hadn't known the species could feel. "Teaching you about consequences," Maya replied. The conversion spread beyond the flagship, jumping from ship to ship through quantum entanglement networks that the Kethmar had used for coordination. In minutes, their entire fleet was experiencing the same mysterious shutdown, but Maya wasn't destroying them. She was doing something far more profound. "Prom, are you recording everything?" "Every detail, Captain." "Good. They need to see this. All of them." Maya opened her consciousness fully, allowing it to flow through the Kethmar networks and into every ship in their fleet. She showed them memories, not her own, but those of the species they had conquered. The fear of the Zephyrians as their cities burned, the desperation of the Tauri as their children were taken for the slave markets, the final moments of the Kree as their homeworld was consumed for resources. 47 species, billions of individual lives, all of it flowing through the Kethmar consciousness like a river of accumulated grief. And for the first time in their history, the Kethmar understood what they had done. The sounds that came from their ships weren't quite screams. The Kethmar vocal apparatus couldn't produce human sounds, but they were the equivalent, carrying notes of horror and realization that transcended species barriers. We did not know," the flagship commander whispered. "We thought them mere animals. Resources we did not know that they could feel." "Now you do," Maya said, her voice gentler now but no less implacable. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" The Kethmar fleet hung motionless in space, 800 ships filled with a species experiencing empathy for the first time in their evolutionary history. Around them, the human ships waited, weapons charged but held in check by an order from Admiral Chen that she was still trying to understand. Maya felt the moment balanced on a knife's edge. She had the power to destroy them all, the precursor. Weapons could turn their entire fleet into cosmic dust, but destruction would solve nothing. The galaxy had seen enough death. "I'm giving you a choice," she broadcast to the entire fleet. "Return to your territory. Tell your people what you've learned. Spend your remaining years making amends for what you've done. Or..." Maya's weapon systems came online, their targeting, sensors painting every ship in the fleet. "I hunt down every last member of your species and show them exactly how it feels to be prey." The silence stretched for minutes that felt like hours. Then slowly, the Kethmar ships began to withdraw. Not in the disciplined formations they'd arrived in, but hesitantly, like beings seeing the universe clearly for the first time. "This is not over," the flagship commander said as the fleet retreated toward the edge of the system. "You have changed us. We must return to our people. We must try to undo what we have done." "Good," Maya replied, "because I'll be watching. And if you forget what you've learned here today..." She let the threat hang unfinished. The Kethmar fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only empty space and the impossible memory of a single human ship that had changed the course of galactic history. Maya sat in the neural cradle, feeling Prometheus around her like a second skin. The immediate threat was over, but she knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was full of predators like the Kethmar, species that viewed others as resources to be exploited. And now there was something new in the cosmic equation. Humanity had announced its presence not with conquest but with choice, not with destruction, but with the possibility of redemption. "Admiral," Maya called over the comm, "this is Prometheus. Mission accomplished." "Maya, are you all right?" Maya considered the question. Was she all right? She was no longer entirely human. Her consciousness spanned technologies that defied understanding. She could feel the quantum foam that underlied reality, could sense the gravitational songs of distant stars. But at her core, she was still the pilot who'd been born between stars, still the daughter who loved her impossible mother, still human enough to choose mercy over vengeance. "I'm different," she said finally, "but I'm still me, and I think that's what makes all the difference." Epilogue. The New Guardians 6. Months after the Battle of Luna Station, Maya Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of Prometheus, watching Earth rise over Luna's horizon. The ship hung in space like a silver dream, no longer quite the alien construct her mother had built. Over the months of integration, it had changed, becoming something that was neither fully human nor entirely precursor, but a synthesis of both. She was no longer alone aboard the ship. "Captain," called Lieutenant Commander James Park, Admiral, Chen's former aide, now Maya's second in command. "We're receiving reports from the Kepler sector. 3 more species have requested human mediation in territorial disputes." Maya nodded without turning from the viewport. News of the Kethmar encounter had spread through the galaxy at the speed of quantum entanglement. The story had grown in the telling. Some versions claimed a human fleet had appeared from nowhere. Others insisted it was a single ship crewed by ghosts. But the core truth remained. Humanity had emerged as a new power in galactic politics, one that chose dialogue over domination. "What's our status on the new candidates?" Maya asked. Dr. Elena Rodriguez looked up from her tablet. In the months since Maya's transformation, Elena had thrown herself into studying the neural interface technology, determined to understand what had saved her daughter from the fate of previous test subjects. 17 volunteers so far, all showing the necessary genetic markers, though none quite as compatible as you were. Maya smiled. The Prometheus project had expanded beyond a single ship. Using technology recovered from other precursor sites, humanity was building a small fleet of hybrid vessels. Not an armada of conquest, but a force dedicated to what Maya had started calling aggressive peacekeeping. "Mom," Maya said quietly, using a voice frequency only Elena could hear through her modified implants. "Are you sure about this? Once we start creating more pilots like me, there's no going back. Humanity changes forever." Elena set down her tablet and joined her daughter at the viewport. "Sweetie, humanity changed the moment you stepped into that neural cradle. The question now is whether we guide that change or let it guide us." Through the ship's sensors, Maya could feel the presence of the other Prometheus-class vessels under construction in the Luna shipyards. Each one would need a pilot willing to transcend the boundaries of human consciousness, to become something new while remaining fundamentally themselves. It was a risk. But then Maya had learned that the most important choices always were. "Captain," came another voice from the ship's intercom. This was Prom, though the AI had evolved far beyond its original parameters. Now it served as much as philosopher as computer, helping new pilot candidates understand what they were choosing. "We have an incoming transmission from the Galactic Council." Maya wasn't surprised. The Council, a loose federation of elder species that had maintained peace through careful neutrality, had been trying to contact humanity for months. They wanted to understand what had happened at Luna Station, wanted to categorize and quantify this new player in galactic politics. "Put them through, Prom." The holographic display materialized, showing representatives of 7 different species. Maya recognized most of them from intelligence briefings. The crystalline Eshkar, the energy beings who called themselves the Luminous, the machine intelligence known as the Archive, ancient powers who had watched empires rise and fall across millions of years. "Captain Rodriguez," spoke the Eshkar representative, its words translated into clear English. "We greet you on behalf of the Galactic Council. Your intervention in Kethmar space has created ripples throughout known civilization." "I hope they're good ripples," Maya replied. A sound that might have been laughter came from the Archive. "Representative, the Kethmar have indeed changed their ways. They've begun returning captured populations to their homeworlds and have offered reparations to surviving members of species they've consumed. It is unprecedented." "More than that," added the luminous delegate, its form shifting through spectra, visible only to Prometheus's enhanced sensors. "Other aggressive species have taken note. The Dominion of Scales has withdrawn from 3 contested systems rather than risk human attention. The Void Hunters have ceased their raiding entirely." Maya felt a chill run through her enhanced consciousness. "They're afraid of us." "Yes," the Eshkar said simply. "And perhaps they should be." Your species has introduced a new variable into galactic civilization, the concept of enforced morality. Many find this disturbing. What's the Council's position? The representatives exchanged glances, or the equivalent given their diverse biologies. Finally, the archive spoke. We wish to offer humanity membership in the Galactic Council. Your species would be granted a voice in interstellar law, access to advanced technologies, and formal recognition as a galactic power. The offer hung, in space between them, loaded with implications Maya was still learning to process. Membership in the Council would legitimize humanity's new role, but would also constrain it. Council members were expected to follow certain protocols to work within existing power structures. There are conditions, I assume? Your military expansion must be limited, the Eshkar said. The Council cannot allow any single species to accumulate too much power. We propose a maximum of 12 Prometheus-class vessels. Maya felt something cold crystallize in her chest. 12 ships. Enough to patrol human space, perhaps respond to a few emergencies, but nowhere near enough to do what she'd started, to actively police the galaxy's predators and protect its victims. I appreciate the offer, Maya said carefully, but I need to discuss this with my government. Of course. But Captain, the luminous representative pulsed with urgency. Understand that this offer comes with an implicit alternative. If humanity chooses to operate outside Council authority, you will be classified as a rogue power. The consequences would be severe. The transmission ended, leaving Maya alone with her crew and an impossible choice. Accept the Council's limitations and help as many as they could within the constraints of galactic politics, or reject the offer and risk turning humanity into the very thing they'd set out to stop, a species that imposed its will through superior force. Well, Lieutenant Commander Park said after a long moment. That's not ominous at all. Elena placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. What are you thinking? Maya stared out at Earth, thinking of the billions of humans who'd trusted her with their future, thinking of the Kethmar, learning empathy for the first time, thinking of all the species still suffering under various forms of tyranny across the galaxy. I'm thinking, she said slowly, that sometimes the most important thing you can do is disappoint people who think they know what's best for everyone. She turned to face her crew, her consciousness expanding to touch every system of the ship around them. In the distance, she could sense the other Prometheus vessels nearing completion, each one a seed of change waiting to bloom. Prom, send a message to Admiral Chen. Tell her we need to talk about the future of humanity. All of it. Shall I include your response to the Council's offer? Maya smiled, feeling the expression echo through quantum fields that connected her to possibilities she was only beginning to understand. Tell them we'll take it under advisement, but make sure they know we're not just another species looking for a seat at their table. We're something new, and the galaxy is going to have to learn to live with that. Outside the viewport, Earth turned slowly in the void, carrying its cargo of dreams and ambitions toward a future that no one could predict. But Maya wasn't worried about the unknown. After all, humanity had always been at its best when facing impossible odds. And now, for the first time in galactic history, they weren't facing them alone. The stars waited, full of mysteries and challenges, and species that needed to learn what Maya had taught the Kethmar, that every choice had consequences, and some choices could change everything. Prometheus turned toward deep space, carrying its human crew toward whatever came next. The galaxy would never be the same. End of story.